On the night of November 23rd, 1973, in Amsterdam, King Crimson recorded a piece of music that technically shouldn't exist.
If everything you've heard about King Crimson is true, it's an absolutely terrifying place.
It wasn't a song, it had no lyrics, no verse chorus structure, and no release. Instead, it was a 12-minute exercise in controlled terror. For decades, music historians and guitarists have looked at Fracture not just as composition, but as a riddle. From 2021 Guitar World, Robert Fripp saying, Anthony has spent 22 years failing to play Fracture. Actually, he's done a pretty good job. Anthony's failure is so well achieved in my book, it's a success. How did the band in the mid-70s create a template for a genre of music that wouldn't even have a name for another 30 years? Today, we are going to deconstruct the impossible geometry of Fracture and find out why this single piece of music remains the most feared and prophetic moment in progressive rock history.
We're far too verbal. That's the problem with us guys. We're too verbal. So Robert and I would try to sort of talk things through quite a lot.
To understand the mystery, we have to look at the state the band was in 1974. At that time, King Crimson had become what Robert Fripp called a monster.
John was the bass voice of his generation, and the only player who, for me, had similar authority was Jaco Pastorius. John was utterly astonishing.
The lineup of Fripp, John Wetton, and Bill Bruford was operating at a level of physical volume and intellectual intensity that was starting to tear the band apart. Robert Fripp's diary from July 24, 1974, argument with Bill Bruford. Bill says they might as well get a session guitarist. But Fracture was different from their other work. Most King Crimson tracks of this era were built on controlled improvisation. The band would set a frame and then explore the space.
Somewhere between a democracy and a true anarchism, not an anarchy. An anarchism where not so much that there is not any ruler, but that everyone has equal ruling authority, if you like.
But Fracture was a closed system. Every note was dictated. Every rhythmic displacement was calculated. It wasn't about freedom, it was about the absence of it. The core of the mystery lies in the motto perpetuo, a perpetual motion. Anthony Garon, in his book Failure to Fracture, Fripp's motto perpetuo requires intense right hands, string skipping, and picking capabilities only a handful of guitarists around the world possess. For minutes on end, Fripp plays a non-stop sequence of cross-picked 16th notes.
In March 2019, I made a video called Fracture is Impossible to Play, which highlighted a quote from Robert Fripp's diary saying, "Fracture is impossible to play."
Technically, this is a nightmare. In most cases, a rock guitar is built on economy of motion, playing what feels natural to the hand. Fracture is anti-natural. It uses intervallic leaps that skip strings and defy the standard blues-based vocabulary of the 70s. When you listen to it, you aren't hearing a melody, you're hearing a mathematical argument. In an interview in 2012, John Wetton said, "That beautiful combination of the slashing heavy metal, insect-like guitar, the mathematical thing going on." Bill Bruford's drumming adds another layer to the puzzle. Again, Robert Fripp from his diary, Bruford's drumming begins to irritate me. Held myself back from passing opinions. He isn't keeping time, he is actively sabotaging it. He uses metric displacement, where the snare hits appear to be in the wrong place, creating a sensation that the music is perpetually falling forward but never landing. This controlled instability is exactly what modern technical metal bands would spend the 2000s trying to replicate. Tosin Abasi in 2016 interview said there were things I was trying to do musically before I heard of them. Then a friend turned me on to them, and I thought, my god, these guys were doing this decades before I even started. Here is where the historical mystery gets strange. If you take the 1974 recording of Fracture and strip away the tape hiss and the vintage keyboard sounds, the structural DNA is identical to what we call gent or technical death metal. In our previous discussions about the band's history, we've talked about how the industry often ignored the band's physical archives, but the intellectual tape of Fracture was ignored. For a different reason. The world literally didn't have the ears for it yet. In 1974, critics called it abrasive or difficult.
Album previous to one that it was on. And when I presented the idea, that was the melody, chords, everything, I got a totally cold reaction. Nobody liked it, hated it. You know, both Robert and Bill said, no, I'm not quite sure about that, don't like it. So I thought, oh, well, I only think it's one of the best things I've written, so I'll keep that, you know.
They didn't realize they were looking at a blueprint. Why did Fripp write it this way?
Specifically for that group. The implication being that you would play in that way in King Crimson and in King Crimson alone. In King Crimson, almost nothing was said. You're just supposed to know.
This leads us to his personal philosophy, the rules of King Crimson.
Music plays the musician, and the test of any good music, in a practical way, is when you can't tell whether the musician is playing the music or the music is playing the musician.
Fripp believed that music should be a discipline. By creating a piece that was physically painful to play and mentally exhausting to follow, he was testing the band.
Well, what can I say? We live in that kind of a world, you know. Yeah, well, Robert and I have had our differences, and we're pretty good at talking them out at much too much length, really.
Many observers have pointed out that Fripp seemed to be chasing a perfection that eventually broke the group. Fracture was that pursuit made manifest. It was a musical black box, a system so perfect and rigid that there was no room left for the humans inside it. The mystery of Fracture isn't just about how it was made, but why it stopped. After the mid-70s, this specific style of brutalist composition almost vanished from Crimson's repertoire as they moved into the more textured, interlocking patterns of the 1980s.
To take a heavy load off his back. After writing more than 300 pages, it's a big book, of text that covers the struggles of learning Fracture for the past 22 years, and finally being able to perform the entire piece in front of some cameras, I am ready to never play this song again.
It was left to the audience and the next generation of musicians to finish the work. When we look at the most complex technical bands of the modern era, we aren't just hearing influence, we are hearing the resolution of the questions Fripp asked in 1974. Fracture was a transmission from a future that arrived 30 years late. So why does Fracture still sound new today? Because it wasn't built on a trend, it was built on a set of mathematical truths. It remains a historical anomaly, a moment where rock music briefly became something else entirely, something colder, sharper, and much more dangerous. Stay curious as always and just listen. Thank you for watching, and I wish you a great day ahead.